Hello, Kasparov and his openings. This is a highly interesting subject, and in this video I would like to talk a little bit about the development of Kasparov's opening repertoire. I will start with an example. Garry Kasparov, a very sharp Sicilian middle game position. The king's castle on different wings. White starts a direct attack against black's king. Rook g3, the idea is clear, rook h3, queen h5 and mate black's king. But we'll see how well Kasparov defends. Rook fc8, queen h5, g6, queen h6. The idea is rook h3. Note that in case of e5, black would prevent rook h3 indeed, but will weaken the d5 square and also will open the diagonal for the bishop. Kasparov played bishop f8, queen h4 against the 30s. Rook h3, take on b3, take on b3, bishop e7. We don't look in details, I just want to show that Kasparov defended very well this position with black by showing some typical defensive resources. Bishop e7, now the pawn on g5 is pinned, so rook h3 would bring nothing for white here because of the simple h5 and white cannot take on h6. So Kengis played f4, b5, black continues his own attack, he wants to clear the c-file. Queen h6 again, rook, bishop f8, queen h4. But Kasparov didn't repeat here the position, he played b4. Knight takes c6. Okay, already b takes c3 would have been enough to get a decisive advantage. Kasparov took bishop takes c6, rook h3, and here Kasparov shows another defensive possibility for black. He closes the h-file with white's own pawn. h5, g takes h6, and now we see that the queen on h4 as well as the rook on h3, they are doing nothing on the h-file, and black is doing great here. Why am I showing this example? One can say that such ideas for black, they are well known, but this game was played in 1973 when Kasparov was only 10 years old. So already as a, I would say as a small child with 10 years, he knew very well how to play in such positions. He could assess correctly white's attack, that it is not so dangerous, and also find resources for counterplay against white's king. Actually, this is objectively a very good position for black. The whole variation is good for black, and Kasparov's way of playing such positions were impressive already when he was 10 years old. So against e4, Kasparov played Sicilian. His whole life he preferred to play Sicilian against e4. Against d4, in those times he played almost exclusively the King's Indian. He also played Benoni with black, but usually he liked to play King's Indian. And here is another example from his YAF from 1976 against Lputian. Kasparov is black. The Zemish variation f3. In those times Kasparov considered that black should not hurry with castle short, and he starts already his own counterplay on queen side. Queen d2, rook b8, black prepares in case of long castle. White played rook b1, so no more long castle. Kasparov castle short. Now the white king will either remain in the center or go to the king side. He can permit to castle short. b4, white gets more space advantage, and Kasparov starts to open the center. Knight e2, c5. Now black has a mighty knight on d4, white took on c6. Kasparov sacrifices a pawn in order to open the position as much as possible. Rook e8. So all the pieces are active, but white needs one more move to complete his development. And here Kasparov starts a very nice combination with a move c5, which opens first the b file, and now knight takes e4, very unexpected. This happened very often in Kasparov's games. His opponents were short just one move in order to finish the development or to reach their goals. With knight takes e4, black opens everything in the position, the e file, the long diagonal, the diagonal for the queen, and the idea is also that the knight from c3 cannot take on e4 because the rook on b1 is hanging. After f takes e4, queen h4 check, white played g3, rook takes b1. Now in case of knight takes b1, black takes on e4 with the queen, and everything is hanging. King f2, this was the idea for white, and here it looks like white is doing fine. The queen on h4 is hanging, the rook on b1 is hanging. Black doesn't have good checks, but now came the second very nice move from this combination, rook b2, and actually black wins in all variations. So we see how well Kasparov could feel such positions already when he was very young. So with black he played, as I said, Sicilian, and against d4 King's Indian mainly, sometimes Benoni. With white he preferred to play first e4, and he played until 1977 exclusively e4 with white. But actually, starting with 1977-78, he started to switch slowly to the first move, d4 with white. So maybe it's better to do it this way. So also he played e4 and d4, and by 1982-1983, his main move became clearly d4 with white. Actually, I would say that 1983 could be considered the first turning point of his opening repertoire. From 1983 till 1989, he played exclusively or almost only d4 in most of his games. He played also e4, but only in few games. And also with black, he made some crucial changes in his opening repertoire. This was mainly connected to the fact that Kasparov qualified for candidate matches, and he prepared a completely new opening against d4 for candidates. This is the Tarrasch defense with black. c4, e6, knight c3, c5. Tarrasch defense was not very popular on the highest level, but the fact that Kasparov started to play it and played it very successfully until the match with Karpov, he reached some important wins against Belyavsky. He also won a game with Tarrasch against Smyslov, didn't lose any single game, and this contributed a lot to the development of Tarrasch defense. But the Tarrasch defense didn't work well in the match against Karpov. In 1984, the first match against Karpov, Kasparov also prepared the Tarrasch defense to play against Karpov, but he lost 2 games in the variation with queen b3. I will show it shortly. So this is the main line of Tarrasch defense: h3, bishop e3, rook e8, And Smyslov and Korchnoi played here a3 with white. Belyavsky played queen c2 and tried queen a4, but Kasparov didn't have particular problems. Karpov played here queen b3, and actually he won both games. So Kasparov decided to leave it off and switch to a much more solid queen's gambit for black against d4. Okay, the match situation against Karpov was critical after the second loss and in Taras defense, so it was a clear sign that he should switch to a more solid opening. In the third match against Karpov in 1986, after d4, Kasparov prepared a new opening, the Grunfeld defense, knight c3, d5. And the Grunfeld defense became his main opening for many years to come. The second turning point I would consider 1990, when he played the fifth match against Karpov. By then Kasparov established already himself as the strongest, clearly the strongest player in the world. So he allowed himself to return to King's Indian, also in his games against Karpov, but also in tournament practice he was very successful with King's Indian. So he had two main openings against d4, Grunfeld Indian and King's Indian. It must be said that against Grunfeld, Karpov tried several lines, but actually Kasparov could solve. Generally he could solve the problems. Maybe in the line with queen b3 he had some problems, but this we will see later in other videos. From 1990 till 2000, Kasparov was very successful with his openings. With white, he developed many ideas in the Scotch. Here he played d4, and as I said, with many new and successful ideas, which brought the Scotch also to a different level. Also the Spanish game, but also against with d4 he developed many new ideas in Nimzo Indian, in Queen's Indian, in Queen's Gambit. But in 2000 Kasparov played the match against Kramnik, where actually everything probably went wrong, including his opening preparation. Kramnik neutralized completely Kasparov's first move e4 by choosing then completely unexpectedly and surprisingly after bishop b5, knight f6, the Berlin defense. Kasparov tried again and again to achieve advantage in the Berlin endgame, but he failed, and actually he couldn't reach anything with the white pieces in this match. Also the Grunfeld went wrong in the second game, so Kasparov felt insecure to play Grunfeld again. He switched to Queen's Gambit accepted and to Nimzo Indian, but he couldn't always solve the problems and was under pressure, under general pressure, although maybe in Nimzo Indian he didn't have particular problems, but the fact that with white he couldn't achieve any advantage gave him a very bad psychological spirit, and he lost this match. After 2000, Kasparov included also some new openings in his repertoire. I would mention here against d4, Chebanenko Slav, for instance. Against e4 he played Sveshnikov successfully with black. And in most of the openings he succeeded to bring again and again some new ideas. In the next videos I will show concretely his new ideas against different variations, different openings. But I would like also to say now that almost any world champion had a special influence on development of the opening theory, but nobody had such a big influence as Kasparov did. Kasparov brought the opening preparation to a completely new level. His analysis, his novelties were a product of very deep and very thoroughful work with his trainers. He usually had several helpers who would help him to find new ideas. Already in 1983, when he started to play in the candidate matches, he had more trainers, more than one I mean, which was quite unusual for that period. Only Karpov had so many trainers, maybe even more. For instance, against Belyavsky, the first match in Moscow, Kasparov had 5 helpers who helped him. So of course all this helped him a lot to develop new ideas, and as we'll see, his contribution to the opening theory was extremely high, extremely big. Thank you.